Afternoon, everyone. I'm Malachy. I work with Reportedly, and we are a small team of journalists based in Europe and North America, and we publish to social primarily and through social. So we leverage online communities, we leverage a lot of the information that Elliot outlined, and apply layers of journalism and crowdsourcing on top of that. And I'm going to take you through one of our investigations, which has a social element to it, but it was not a typical quick fire verification that we would do of a social story that's happening live or today. This took a little longer. It came from a source, a trustworthy source, and I'm just going to go through the steps that we took to develop this. Establish the credibility of the information and the documents, and then put it out onto social and create a community that helped to monitor this series of exports from Italy to forces that were bombing Yemen over the course of several months. What we received was a diplomatic cable that was supposedly hacked from the Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs by a group called the Yemen Cyber Army. And of course, any group calling itself the Yemen Cyber Army, we really need to establish the bona fides of the document if they say it's from the Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the document outlined a letter from Burkan, which is an arms manufacturer in the UAE, to the UAE Armed Forces, saying, in order to fulfill our contract with you to make these bombs, we need you to request passage through Jeddah port from the Saudi authorities for this ship, the Jolly Cobalto, that's leaving Genoa in Italy in May, and it's carrying. They gave a list of the bombs that it was carrying. So how we set about that is there were cover letters, and we had the full chain of communications from Burkan to the UAE forces, onto their Ministry of Foreign Affairs, onto the diplomats in Saudi, which then went to the Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs and was sent to the Port Authority, the Minister of the Interior, who's the King's son, the Ministry of Transport, and I think that was it. And we had this full chain in Arabic with the English letter and the packing list. And so the first step was to have it translated, and a former Arabic-speaking colleague of mine translated the entire documents, and we had those double-checked with Amnesty's Gulf section because of differences in Arabic script, and Amnesty, bar two words in the letter, confirmed that it was correct. And we, in the meantime, checked dates and checked the phone numbers, in fact, and the fax numbers, and many of those stood up, and the names of the ministers and their departments, the Hijri dates, as I said. And on the top of the telexes, you had MOFA for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, just in the cover header line, and then going to Wazir al-Difa. So if you pop in Ministry of Defense into Google Translate, put it into Arabic and listen to that translation, it's Wazir al-Difa, and similarly for the other departments. So while I was waiting for the transcript to come back, I was satisfied that the document did look good. Examining other key pieces of information, the ship, the Jolly Cobalto, was one of those, along with the packing list, and we'll get to that in a minute. And the ship, I worked with the research team at The Intercept. The Intercept is our sister publication, and they've got a great research team and loads of resources and databases available to them. And we got help there. I was advised to look at equasis.org, which is a shipping database, and it had listed the Jolly Cobalto as being under the Ignazio Messina Italian logistics company, and on their website they said the ship was still under construction, and it gave other details on it about the ship. It's a container ship. I think it's the largest roll-on, roll-off ship on the water at the moment. But Equasis had logged an inspection of this ship in April, late April, and then by looking at marine traffic, when I checked out Jolly Cobalto there, it was actually in around Iran at that time, so it was clearly active, and it was it had been deployed at this point, so the Messina information was outdated. By getting in touch with Marine Traffic, they gave me the 60-day history of the ship, and this was its maiden voyage, and we tracked it from Genoa down through the Suez Canal. It docked in Jeddah and then went around, and it docked in the UAE. And the fact that its maiden voyage also was important to the credibility of the original document, because if you were to fabricate something like this, you would choose one of Ignacio Messina's other ships that also travels that route, and you wouldn't choose a ship that was still under construction, according to that website. So that also lended itself to the document. The Saudi authorities, by the way, they admitted that they had been hacked, but they refused to verify that these were the documents that had been taken. And this tranche of documents was then given to WikiLeaks, and they would later become known as the Saudi cables. And they were the source of a number of different articles. And there's still a wealth of information out there for any Arabic investigative journalists who are interested in going through those documents. There's all sorts of fascinating things, like Italian submarines docking and requesting shopping trips into Jeddah and all of this sort of stuff. So, but anyway, to get back to this, another key piece of evidence was the packing list, which listed RWM Italia as the manufacturer of, you can see it on the right-hand side, barely, Mk82 and Mk83 bombs. And so in investigating this, I spoke to a number of different experts in the arms industry and the human rights industry. The Stockholm Institute for Peace Research, SIPRI, their researcher said, well, you know, this is interesting. It basically confirms what we know about Barkhane, is that they have the capacity to assemble bombs, but not to make them from scratch, and they buy the parts from European manufacturers. And they had never seen shipping data like this, or as recent as this. So it was interesting to them. And they put me in touch with Giorgio Beretta, who's an arms monitor in Italy. And Giorgio helped me to get export licenses granted by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Italy for RWM Italia, which show that indeed they do manufacture these bombs, Mk82s, Mk84s, and also large Mk83s, which becomes relevant. The export licenses from 2011, 12, 13 showed us, and 14 in fact, showed us that they were exporting these and other munitions to Australia, to Saudi Arabia, and now to the UAE and to other places. In speaking to Human Rights Watch about this, I was curious, was there anything unusual? Why would a diplomatic request be needed in this case? Why wouldn't the ship just pass on through? And they said, oh, well, this is interesting. Our researchers have just come back from Yemen, Ole Solvang, and he has photographed Mk83 bombs on the ground there. And what's more, he photographed the bombs made by RWM Italia, and the cage number he photographed up closer. If you zoom in on his photographs, you can get the cage number, which if you Google or go onto weapons websites, you'll see is RWM. So now we have a trail of evidence showing that Italy is manufacturing and exporting bombs to the forces that are bombing Yemen, where a large number of civilian casualties have been recorded, where a large number of civilian areas have been, in fact, targeted irresponsibly, and both Amnesty and Human Rights Watch and CAT UK say illegally. And this potentially goes against international law, European law, and Italy's own law. Of course, I was curious to see if there was any social content from Yemen, because that's pretty much the only way we can report on what's happening on the ground there at the moment. So I looked at the metadata using exifdata.com, where you just upload the photographs, and if there's metadata there, it will give you that metadata, such as the camera type, the focal length, all sorts of information, including in this case the GPS position for the photographs that Ole had sent me. By using wikimapia.org, it's a crowdsourced map, and by plugging in the latitude and longitude, it brought me to the complex that Ole said that he took the photographs in. Of course, you would take him at his word, being a researcher with Human Rights Watch, but this also gave an extra level of verification, but also further details, again in Arabic, by people who had described this building. And those details then, combined with Ollie's timeline, allowed me to find video of the buildings that had been bombed on YouTube and to do similar geolocation verification to Elliot, the coloured boxes, identifying, if I just go back one slide, you can see just the corner, the trees, the alignment of them, a palm tree in the background, the shape of the building and the elevation in the middle. Also, there's a white mosque at an angle, this is quite often the case, besides this building. And you can see all of these details here, the mosque, the alignment of the trees there in the building, and the mosque was damaged as well, and further other buildings that you see when the camera flips around. So there we have it. That was the body of the investigation. Bombs are being shipped to this conflict, to forces involved in this conflict. And it was kind of, well, what else is there? And how do we link it to our readers? And we looked at the investors in the parent company, which is a German company called Rheinmetall Defense. And Rheinmetall own RWM Italia, and RWM Italia was previously owned by the same company that Burkhan was owned by. So there is a connection between all of those three outfits, and it would seem that they regularly do business together. Invested in the company in Rheinmetall is the Norwegian State Pension Fund, the New York State Retirement Fund, about 200 pension and education funds. And so a lot of readers, we felt, who were looking at this may unwittingly be involved in, be benefiting from the arms sales from Rheinmetall. And Rheinmetall, its other subsidiaries, had been involved in other controversial arms sales, not least the supply of potent tear gas to Bahraini armed forces, and there are other things that are listed in the main report. By the way, the short link for this is bit.ly/Yemen bombs, and Yemen bombs 2 and Yemen bombs 3 for the follow-ups that we did. And I think there's a Yemen bombs 4 as well, actually. So we, as a small outfit, reportedly has a limited reach. So we were thinking, how do we maximize the presentation of this? How do we bring other elements into it from social and elsewhere? And so I was keen to see from Genoa, was there any evidence of to illustrate these bombs leaving the port, or Lina Messia there, Burkhan munition systems. They in fact had very slick marketing material on their YouTube channel showing the manufacturer or the assembly of these bombs. And so we using Google Earth, we put together a 2-minute
investigation by
video.
Reportedly has found that bomb parts manufactured by Italian weapons company RWM Italia were shipped in May 2015 to the United Arab Emirates, one of the countries actively bombing Yemen. Loaded in 6 containers aboard the Jolly Cobalto at Genoa port, the bomb parts were shipped through the Suez Canal and on to Jeddah, where transit permits were granted by Saudi ministries at the behest of the United Arab Emirates Embassy. The shipment was transported around the coast of Yemen and on to Dubai, where it was unloaded and transported to Burkhan Munition Systems, an arms manufacturer in Abu Dhabi.
Burkhan's Mk-80 series aircraft bomb is a general multi-purpose ballistics bomb. Our aerodynamically streamlined LBGP bombs are perfect for situations where maximum blast and explosion is required. They can be dropped free fall or used with precision guidance kits.
Documents seen by Reportedly show that Burkhan supplies these bombs to the UAE armed forces. Separate evidence collected by Human Rights Watch researchers and reviewed by Reportedly shows that Mk-83 bombs bearing the labels of RWM Italia were dropped on this building in Sada, northern Yemen. Video shared by a local YouTube uploader and independently geolocated and verified by Reportedly shows the damage to the building. No civilians were killed in this attack. However, human rights documenters believe it is likely these munitions were used in potentially unlawful bombings in Yemen. RWM Italia is a subsidiary of the German arms and automotive company Rheinmetall Defense, and until 2012, Burkhan was also a subsidiary. Financial funds who invested in Rheinmetall and benefited from its billion-dollar revenues include Norway's State Retirement Fund, the New York...
Anyway, get the picture. So, by putting out, video like that, that also made social atoms and embeds available to publishing partners on this. Another thing that we did was to break down each of these key findings and key evidence into little social atoms, and with visual cues, short videos, maps, and so on. We thread those together. If anybody who follows Reportedly will know that we reply to our previous tweets if there's a block of tweets that are related to each other. So that allows us to tweet that out again, which I just did earlier on, actually. A number of publishers partnered with us on this. Our sister publication, The Intercept, Mashable, it was translated into 4 or 5 languages in a dozen publications or so. We were very keen to get it published in Norway, where the State Retirement Fund is invested, in Germany, where Rheinmetall is under pressure for people to divest. There's an active divestment campaign from them. El Español reprinted it in Spanish, and several publications in Italy republished it. And this was really valuable to us. The Sardinia Post, for instance, another blogger in Sardinia, Il Post, they translated the whole thing verbatim. And as you can see, embedded the social atoms that we had, and their broadcasters picked it up. So that created a little bit of awareness and momentum about it. People started sending me messages on Facebook, and that really helped us create a community. And I think also a starting point for that is really what we do on Reportedly is tagging people and being generous and retweeting them natively, and just tagging them when they're saying various different things, provided they're putting information out on the public platform. So just being generous like that, it encourages people to get back in touch when things are happening. And in fact, the second investigation in this series, or report in this series, was 2 people in Italy separately DM'd me this morning and said, you might be interested in this. There are bombs on the runway in an airport at the south of Sardinia. They're now flying the bombs out there. I was told that Michel Rufi was a journalist who was at the scene, got in touch with him. He said 747 is going to take off from Baku in a few hours. Actually, sorry, this is the third one, where there was an airplane coming in from Baku to collect an arms shipment that was there. But over the course of the next several exports of bombs, Michel was there. He took photographs and videos and sent them to us. Giorgio Beretta, who I mentioned earlier on, the arms monitor, he helped with translations and with other information and more export licenses that were granted. Francesco, who's a colleague of Giorgio Beretta's, also got involved and monitored what we were saying about this and said there's going to be parliamentary questions. This was when there were bombs on the track, and a parliamentarian there was trying to block the shipment, basically, and he was in Parliament. So we got in touch, and these guys translated what he was saying in Parliament, so we live tweeted that. So there were lots of different elements of this over the course of several months where we collaborated when the time arose. On the third shipment, this was the second shipment, I think, on end of October, yes. So we were monitoring this. We didn't actually know where it was going to go, but we thought it would go to Saudi based on the information that we had, the types of bombs. They had brought in this cargo plane from Azerbaijan. Flight radar were very helpful to us as well. The photographs that we had had an obscured tail number for the flight, so they identified it on the tarmac for us. We thought it might have gone at this stage, but it was still there, and that enabled us then to track it in real time. It flew over Egypt, turned off its responder, and then we picked it up on another app, flight tracking app. And then it's descended in towards Jeddah, and then at the last minute turned towards Taif and landed over there. Taif is a military airport in Saudi. So by watching it, we got all of those details as well about what was happening. And because this was the first shipment, perhaps there was confusion about where it needed to go and was redirected. And again, wove all of those together into videos that you can see on our YouTube channel or Facebook page. And these got quite a big pickup on social media again. And then Internazionale republished the whole thing again, and excerpts from the second ones And then last month, I think Internazionale has the biggest readership, and then last month Mediaset, they did have a Sunday night primetime programme that does satirical takes on political issues, but they also do investigations, and they have a 13-14% audience share, 2.5 million people, and they reconstructed it on their show and then confronted the Minister for Foreign Affairs about this as well, and interviewed Amnesty's representative in Italy and Francesco indeed, and other people, and wove it all together. So that creates its own pressure inside there. So now there's a community that is actively engaged in pinging each other, and politicians involved from the opposition, 5 Star movement that was founded by Beppe Grillo. So it's just an example of an active community coming together, bringing their skills to bear around a story that affects people in Italy, but also far away in Yemen. And that's it. I was going to talk just very briefly about some of the tools that we use. And for me, TweetDeck and Twitter lists are our lifeblood. Twitter's my workspace. I get tips from it. I communicate through it. If I need to communicate securely, I'll try to get somebody onto Signal, which is encrypted, and Facebook Messenger. And in Reportedly as well, we have, same as in Storyful, I think Eliza will show you this, we have a standardized toolkit. And in the folders that we have here, we have a lot of the research material that the research team and The Intercept have set up. Our own research material and lots of tools, open source tools around people's Twitter accounts, first tweets, being able to look at geolocated tweets and track where people have been. All these sorts of free tools that are out there. Researchclinic.net, another great resource, are in the folders, and then just icons for the tools that we would use most regularly, be it mapping tools or search tools or geolocation search tools. This is GramFeed, and we used to use this until recently to look for geolocated Instagram photographs. And Instagram tends to be more geolocated than a lot of the other platforms just because of its interface. This is the Hong Kong protests. Banjo is a paid-for tool, and we use Banjo, and it's quite good. The geolocation on it is clever. It takes in not just like latitude and longitude, but it'll take that radius and it'll find out what places are tagged in there and has anybody checked into those various places. And they also have a news team that appear to, around breaking news events, they'll create a first filter, kind of a news event column where you're getting visuals and tweets and information. And then, that's useful to use as for finding sources, and then as a jumping off point to do further investigation. SamDesk is another tool, again, updated its geolocation technology recently to do similar work. We don't use SamDesk as much as we should because we've got a little bit of a publishing glitch, but it has workflow and publishing ability built into it, and its embeds of tweets and social content is quite nicely presented. It also allows you to create lists of sources. So in the Westgate attack, for instance, if you were able to identify 10 or 12 or 15 sources who were on the ground, you could bunch them all together across multiple platforms into one list and monitor their output. Facebook Signal isn't available to all journalists yet. Some have it, and I'm pretty sure journalists here at The Guardian and elsewhere could get it. And I use it simply because Facebook search isn't wholly reliable, and Signal allows you to go into Instagram and Facebook search and put in hashtags and search terms and find sources and information. And I find this very useful, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. It's been useful to me in attacks on Timbuktu and other bases in Mali, in Boko Haram attacks in Nigeria. I've identified people there who are able to provide information and pictures and so on. Yomapic is also a geolocation tool. It has geotagged VK, which is the Russian Facebook, in inverted commas, and Instagram photographs. I don't think it has Twitter. It doesn't, just those two. And the beauty of this is that you can examine people's accounts within Yomapic, and you don't have to go elsewhere. And the reason you do that is you want to establish what's their digital history. If they're posting from the Calais jungle, were they there recently, or is this a once-off photograph, and do they scrape photos from lots of different places? So it's just reliability of that particular source. And TW Explorer, you may find it useful. What it does is it presents a lot of other related terms and phrases that might be used in your search. And what I say to people is put yourself in an uploader's shoes. Try to identify how they would describe the event if they're there tweeting something at a breaking news event or what have you. And APG allows you to put in social atoms and pull out more metadata than is presented by the platforms themselves. That's it. Happy for your questions.